Welcome to Scrolling to Death. Today I'm talking to Jaime Puerta. Hi, Jaime.
Hi, how are you, Nikki?
I'm pretty good. So today is going to be a heavy conversation. If you listen to this podcast regularly, this story might sound somewhat familiar. And while these stories do have similarities, these children are individually very important. And we need to know the stories and we need to know the children who have lost their lives due to an epidemic that could affect any family. So, Jaime, can you please just introduce us to your son, Daniel? I'd love to get to know him.
Yes, thank you so much. My son's name is Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson. We're Hispanic, so he gets all the names. So Daniel was just a really inquisitive type of kid. He was really deep. He was very spiritual in nature, but not religious-wise. He wanted to have all the answers of the whys, like why are we here? What are we doing here? And what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he just had a lot of questions. He was very inquisitive. He was the type of kid who would take his shirt off his back to help anybody out. He was highly compassionate and empathetic. He couldn't see these commercials on TV from the ASPCA because, you'd see a dog struggling or a cat struggling and you'd see tears strolling down his cheeks. Yeah. That was just the kind of kid he was. He was very, very sentimental like I am. We're Hispanic again.
Yeah.
I have no excuse for it. That's just the way that we were made up. And he had a lot more friends that were girls than boys. At least that's what I noticed anyways. Not because of how handsome he was, but what I'm told by his friends who were girls is just that he had a great listening ear and they could go to him with everything. And they said that he gave the best boyfriend advice in the world. And so they loved being around him, that, his smile would light up a darkest room. That's the kind of kid Daniel was. He loved math. He wanted to go on to college to maybe become a software engineer. He was thinking about that path. Never really got into any trouble until in his teen years, like they all do.
Yep.
But sixth grade came along and puberty came and something went off in his head where he just wasn't as interested in school anymore. Up to that point, he was like straight A's and B's and perfect attendance at school and got the principal's award, things like that. And something went off in his head. He lost interest for school. I don't think he liked Common Core very much. He didn't like the schematics of how to get to an answer. He just knew the answer. So he didn't want to do the work. He got lazy about it.
Yeah. Sounds like my son.
Yeah. He was just like, he was not interested in it at whatsoever. He just lost interest in school altogether. I had to put him in summer school in 7th grade and 8th grade and 9th grade.
Did that line up with his smartphone use or social media use? Was that around the same time?
It was around the same time. And you know what? Now in hindsight, as a parent, I had absolutely no idea, to my own fault. I had no idea exactly what these smartphones was doing to my son. And I had no idea, quite frankly, of what he was doing on it. I never really, well, we could take a deep dive on that too later, but he developed ADHD. He was diagnosed with it, and he was also diagnosed with depression. I couldn't understand how a kid who had absolutely everything in life. I mean, I'm not wealthy or anything like that, but anything that a kid would want, he had, and he earned it, but nevertheless, he had been diagnosed with depression and ADHD, and we had our struggles because of that.
Well, and there's been a link between ADHD-like symptoms and excessive social media use, so that's not surprising.
I came to a point where I took his phone away on a couple of occasions, but these kids are smart. They would get these burner phones from their friends, and then he would hook up to his neighbor's Wi-Fi somehow. I don't know how he figured that out, but he figured that out as well. And so he was still able to communicate with his friends and everybody like that. It became quite clear that I had a definite problem on my hand, and I just did not know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And then he began using drugs on a recreational basis. In 9th grade, he was a big kid. He was 5'11", weighed about 210 pounds. One of the coaches at Canyon Country High School, where he went to summer school, told him, "Hey, man, you're a big kid. You got to play football. You have to play football." And so he called the football coach over at Saugus High School and said, "Hey, I got this kid. He's 5'11", weighs about 210 pounds. I think you should put him to work. And Daniel was excited about it, and he joined the football team at Saugus High.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to have turned around his mental health a little bit. His grades started getting better again. He was really excited about being on the football team. Lots of friends, popular kid on school campus. All that comes with being on a football team, right? He was really proud of himself, and he worked hard. Every practice he would just work his butt off. But when football season was over, it was off to the races per se here at my home. I mean, it took a dark turn. He started experimenting with pills, and I had to, because I'm in the state of California, if I wanted to put him in a rehab of any kind, he would be able to check himself out if he wanted to.
Oh, as a
There
minor?
was nothing that I could do as a parent. As a minor, he could check himself out.
Oh, wow.
So much so that when I first started seeing patterns that were very obvious to me, I would take him to his primary treating physician to have him tested for drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And they would test him, but when the results would come out, they wouldn't give me the results. And I said, well, why can't I have the results? And he goes, well, he has to sign off on it. He has to give you permission to see what the results of those tests are. And I go, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-mm.
I'm paying over $1,400 a month for health insurance for myself, my wife, and myself. I'm paying for his health insurance. He's a minor. I should be able to see the results of these tests, and didn't do it. So I was forced to go on to Amazon and started buying my own kits, and I started testing it myself.
Okay.
Being that we were in that situation, I sent him to what they call a wilderness camp in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some parents have had some really bad experiences with those types of camps. For us, it was just the opposite. We had the best experience in the world. He did as well.
Okay.
When he got out, he was back to his old self. He wanted to catch up on his work. His dream was to graduate on stage with his class. He worked hard on it. When I put him in, he was about a year, 2 months behind on his schoolwork. That's how bad it was because of all the school that he had missed, because of the problems that we were having with him. He actually caught up. He caught up to his school. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Wow.
So I put him in a charter school called Opportunities for Learning, where he was able to catch up to his grade, and he wanted to graduate on stage with his class. I actually asked for an honorary degree for him, and they told me that it was ready today. So I'm going to go pick it up later. That's kind of
cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
wow,
after he got out and so he went in September and he got in November of 2018. There was absolutely no drug use in our family or with him until up to the point of death, until the day that he died, which was April the 6th of 2020. Though I found him in his bedroom, unconscious, very shallow breathing, already with the initial signs of, which I now know is like the blue fingertips, the blue lips. I knew something horribly wrong had happened. So called the 911. Then I called his biological mother, who lives about five minutes from where I live with my wife. And 911 and the ambulance came, picked him up. First took him to Henry Mayo Hospital here in Santa Clarita. And then from there, they took him to Los Angeles Children's Hospital, where they told us that, basically that his brain had gone too long without enough oxygen, and there was serious brain damage, and he was in a deep, deep coma, and there was nothing that we could do to get him back from that. So on April the 5th of the day before he died, his mom and I took the decision they told us that his kidneys were not failing, and as was his liver. He had already suffered pulmonary arrest as well as cardiac arrest while he was in the hospital. We didn't want him to suffer at all, so we made that brutal decision. We made that brutal decision to disconnect all life saving measures, and they came in at the next day on April the 6th at 3:45 in the afternoon, and my son passed away in peace with his mother in bed with him, and me holding his right hand when he took his last breath at 5:08 of the afternoon of that day.
I'm so sorry, Jaime. Did you know right away what drug he had been given?
No, I did not. That first night, of April the 1st, after speaking with the medical team, I came home and I spoke with my wife. By that time, some of my nephews and nieces has come. One of my nieces came down from Sacramento, and I went into his bedroom and I found half a blue pill on top of his dresser. And the very next day, when I went back to the hospital, I took that blue pill with me, and I gave it to the doctors with a sliver of hope that if they were able to find out what the contents, if they could find out what it was made of, maybe they could reverse the deep coma that he was in. I knew deep down inside, though, the way I found my son, that there was nothing that was going to bring him back for that. So what they did is they grabbed that pill. They called Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, and a detective from our local sheriff station went to the hospital, picked up the half pill that I had found. They took it to their own labs. And approximately about 2 or 3 weeks after my son had passed away, a detective from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's had come to me and he told me, Mr. Puerta, we're very sorry, but your son died of an overdose. And the first question that came to mind that I asked him was, please explain to me, because by this time that had passed, I had done my own research and it looked like what he had taken was a blue M30 oxycodone pill, but in reality, it wasn't an oxycodone pill.
Right.
They told me that it was a fake pill, a counterfeit pill made of binder, filler, and fentanyl, and that's what took his life. And so when he told me that my son had died due to an overdose, I said, that's not an overdose, sir. That is what we call that's a poisoning. My son was poisoned. My son did not want to die. He did not commit suicide.
No.
He did not suffer substance abuse. In my own mind, he didn't have a substance use disorder. We believe that the pandemic really had a lot to do with his mental health and the decline of his mental health due to the fact that he was locked away in his bedroom, not being able to see his girlfriend, not being able to hang out with his friends, locked away in the bedroom doing homework 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And I think that really put a whammy on him. So we feel that he connected with a drug dealer through Snapchat. That night before he passed away, he asked me if he could take the dog for a walk, which I found a little strange because he never took Birdie out for a walk. But I said yes, of course, and he took her out, and he was back here like no later than 15 minutes later. And we feel that he went down to the corner where the local elementary school is at. That's where he met that drug dealer and bought what he thought was that oxycodone pill. I actually spoke to a friend of his. I asked him, I said, do you think that Daniel was trying to consume fentanyl or illicit fentanyl? And he said, absolutely not. That there was no way that he was trying to consume fentanyl. I can tell you right now.
Okay, so that's something to clarify for parents, is that in these cases, it is not an overdose. Someone who's trying to overdose isn't breaking a pill in half and taking half of a pill, and that it is a poisoning situation.
I look at it this way. If I am aware of the intake of the drug that I am ingesting and I take too much of it and I die, knowing full well what I'm ingesting, like if 61 years of age, if I sit down and I try to do 2 grams of cocaine, I can tell you my heart's going to burst. It's just going to blow up, and I'm going to die. That would be considered to be an overdose.
Yeah.
But if you are buying what you think is a pharmaceutical grade blue M30 oxycodone pill, that is designed to alleviate the worst pain in the world. That's what it does. It takes pain away. But in reality, it's a fake pill. It's a pill made to look exactly like the pharmaceutical pill, but it's made with illicit fentanyl instead of the OxyContin agent that's supposed to be in the pharmaceutical. Then that in and of itself is a poisoning. It's not an overdose, especially if you're only taking half a pill. And that's one of the questions that I asked the detective. I go, please explain to me what pharmaceutical pill out there, when only consumed half of it, is able to take the life of a perfectly healthy 16-and-a-half-year-old boy. And he goes, well, there's not. I mean, there's no pill out there that can kill
over 200 pounds, It's not like a small child or something. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was, So, and that's the thing, is that one of the problems with our society is this huge stigma of addiction and overdose. When the first thing that comes, when you hear of a neighbor or a loved one or somebody in your neighborhood who has died due to drugs, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, that person must have been a drug addict, or that person
Mm.
must have been a recreational drug user who just
Yeah.
used too much drugs. Our minds have been taught, again, to the stigma of addiction and overdose that, like when Prince died due to fentanyl, nobody thought anything more of it. But Prince had been jumping off of pianos since he was 14, 15 years old, had serious back problems, from what I understand, wanted to
Mhm.
alleviate pain, thought what he thought. He thought he was taking an oxycodone pill, but it turned out to be a fake pill made of fentanyl, and it killed him. But because he was a rock star, and that was what we expect of rock stars, is
Uh-huh.
we've heard so many of them die, Tom Petty, Little Peep, and so many others. We just think, well, that's the lifestyle. There must have been drug addicts, so therefore they die.
Mm.
But what most Americans don't understand, or what most families don't understand, is that if you think that this can't happen to you or your family, I'm sorry. I'm the bearer of very bad news. You are sorely mistaken, because this is taking 200 lives a day. And for the first time in the history of the United States, it's taking the lives of non addicted children at an alarming rate. UCLA came out with the findings of the number of adolescents between the ages of 11 and 18 years of age. This report came
Mhm.
out in 2022. Back in 2022, we're losing approximately 22 children between the ages of 11 and 18 years of age per week in the United States. Now,
Mm.
on a survey done with 12th graders, drug use had in the last 20 years has fallen from 22% to 8% in the United States in the last 20 years. But nevertheless, more children are dying. And they're
Mm.
dying is
Wow.
because they don't have any idea of these fake pills, which is why myself and our foundation is so laser focused into getting into as many junior high schools and high schools as possible to giving our presentation, so making them aware of the inherent danger that there is.
Okay. So let's do a little education for parents right now on where this fentanyl is coming from. How's it getting here? What does it look like? How can our kids identify it? So I want to make sure parents are really understanding. So, where is this fentanyl being made? Let's start there.
At first, it was being made in China. I believe in either 2017 or 2019, the chief of staff or then President Donald Trump brokered a
Hmm.
deal with Xi Jinping where they were able to classify fentanyl in the People's Republic of China as a scheduled drug, therefore making it illegal to make it. That was either in 2017 or 2019. But what the Chinese didn't do is they didn't outlaw the precursors. In fact, I just got back, Nikki, from the China Select Committee,
Hmm.
published a bipartisan report in which they say that 97% of all the precursor agents to make fentanyl are coming from China, are sold to the criminal international terrorist organizations. I call them terrorists because that's what they are. But it's the Mexican cartels who are now making the fentanyl, and in change, all of the proceeds of all of the drug market are going to the Chinese, the Communist Party of China, actually, and they are laundering this money for them at a very low commission rate. It's a criminal enterprise. Now, one of the questions is, how do children, why are they doing this? Well, I've never gotten political about this, and I try not to get political about it, but they,
Hmm.
according to this report, is that they're just trying to weaken our democracy. But truth be
Hmm.
told, that before this fentanyl crisis occurred, when oxycodone and oxycontin were first released into the market in 1996, they came out with a white paper, a peer-reviewed paper, where they said that only 3.5% of the population who ever took these pills would ever become addicted to them. But the truth of the matter was, it was more than 50%, because when you talk about oxycodone, you're talking about a legal form of heroin.
Hmm.
So by the year 2016, we had over 25 million Americans addicted to prescription opioids. So under the Obama administration, to no fault of his own, decided to change the prescribing practices through the Veterans Administration of how many pills could be prescribed to a patient. So if you remember, if you went and you got a root canal or something like that, and you go to the dentist, they would give you a jar of oxycodones.
Hmm.
Now they would only give you 2 or 3 pills. So because of the new practices of prescribing, what they basically did is they turned that faucet off, but they didn't have a plan B. What were they going to do with all of the people who were addicted
Hmm.
or who were chronically addicted to these prescription opioids. That's when these criminal organizations south of the border said, well, we need to fill this void.
Yeah.
Now we have a market. And what they did is they just started making their own counterfeit pills, making them look like pharmaceutical grade OxyContins, oxycodones, Percocets. Very popular amongst the college students are the Adderalls, for example, Vicodin. It's even been found not to be sold this way, but to being trafficked into the country. They've actually made it into Tylenols and also baby aspirin. That's how they brought them into the country. So they started making their own pills, and then they came up with the idea, well, we can distribute them through social media apps. And that's when they were able to penetrate for the very first time a segment of society that was always elusive to them, which was our children. But now that you could find these pills openly being sold on apps like Snapchat, Discord, TikTok, X, Instagram, WhatsApp, WeChat, Telegram, all of these other encrypted type of applications, they were able to sell these drugs to our children who were just trying to experiment for the first time or were going through some kind of emotional or physical trauma and they wanted to self-medicate. We have a huge self-medication problem here in the United States. And we also have to talk about the mental health of our children, which has been a huge cause of this crisis as well. And these criminal organizations have taken advantage of that. Children are buying what they think are again, pharmaceutical pills. But in reality, as we well know, the DEA has told us is that 100%, not 98, not 95, not 70, 100% of all the pills being bought on social media are fake. And 7 out of 10 of those pills are potentially lethal. Those are the official stats that the government is telling us. These are the official stats the Drug Enforcement Administration has told us as well.
And these pills, these fake pills look exactly like a prescription pill, correct?
It's almost impossible to tell the difference. I think you would have to be a pharmacist to be able to tell the difference between one and the other.
Okay.
But we do know is what we do, and when we give these educations and we talk about social media, we tell the kids, look, if you are not taking a medication that comes out of a prescription bottle that has your name on it, with your doctor's name on it, and that you're picking up from a licensed, accredited pharmacy, you're not to take anything. I don't care if it comes from your best friend, your aunt, your uncle. You do not do that, right?
Yeah.
You just take pills that have been prescribed to you by your own doctor. And that's what we tell kids because, quite frankly, we already know, like I said before, 7 out of 10 pills are potentially lethal. 100% of all the pills being bought on social media are fake.
Right. We can't take that risk. Why do they add fentanyl instead of using the active ingredients?
One, because the active ingredients are not available to them.
Okay.
2, their desire is to drive addiction into as many people as possible. And the cost of doing business for them is if somebody dies due to a poisoning, that's just the cost of doing business. They really don't care. All they really care about is the dollar, the almighty dollar. From what I understand, it costs 3 cents to 5 cents to make one pill. In poor communities, impoverished neighborhoods, they'll sell a pill there for $5. But then you'll also have them couriers selling these pills in Beverly Hills and in Malibu for $30, $40, $50. So the profit margin on these pills is unbelievable. They have never made as much money as they are making now, much more so than the cocaine trade back in the 80s and the 90s. This has brought them so much money that they're never going to stop. And again, if somebody dies, that's just the cost of doing business, quite frankly. It's pretty sad.
And what, if anything, is our government doing to help stop this epidemic?
Oh, my God. That is a great question. Not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. I think they're afraid, quite frankly, to do what's necessary to stop this. You have a lot of groups out there that are harm reduction. They want to hand out free testing strips and the lock zone and things like that. I personally feel, and I've been told as well, is the best way to go about this is to go after the source. Just the threat of deeming these criminal organizations south of the border as a foreign terrorist organization would be huge because that would free up a lot of resources here in the United States to be able to go after them both We could go after them militarily, quite frankly, if we had to.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go after the giant and the big banks that are facilitating the laundering of all of the proceeds from these drug sales. We have to go after the Communist Party of China members who are actually the owners of some of these factories that are producing these precursors. I feel that if we were to exert some pressure on the Mexican government, because right now we have Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the president of Mexico, who has actually stated that fentanyl is not made in his country, one, and that two, that the reason why so many American children are dying is due to the lack of love, which is why these children are turning to drugs to help them out emotionally. I'm not making this up. You could find the quote. You go on Google and look for it, and you'll find it. I feel like if we were to levy some heavy tariffs on Mexican products coming into the United States, as well as taxing all the remittances that go from the United States to Mexico, if we were to heavily tax them, that would force them to come to the negotiating table, because right now they're not doing nearly enough to deal with these criminal organizations. And from what I understand, the same government is complicit with the organizations themselves. They've been taken over by the cartels, quite frankly. I think what's happening in Mexico is the same thing that had happened in my birth country of Colombia back in the late 70s and 80s, where the criminal cartel organizations had basically taken over the government, and a lot of people were implicated, and they were able to get out of that by help from the United States. I think that we need to do that also with Mexico, especially after their sources. What broke up the Cali cartels and the Medellin cartels was there when we interrupted their finances.
Okay. Let's discuss, too, the part that social media plays in this epidemic. So you mentioned that these fake pills are being sold on all different social media platforms, but are there heavy hitters that parents should be aware of?
Snapchat. Snapchat, in my own mind, is the number one app that these drug dealers love to use. I found an article from 2017, I believe it was the Telegraph in London, England, and it was a report on how a 15-year-old girl had died due to an overdose on MDMA. I believe it was ecstasy. The mother had stated that how this young girl, this 15-year-old, had gotten the MDMA was through a drug dealer on Snapchat. The reporter was able to actually speak to the drug dealer and asked him why he liked using Snapchat to sell the drugs. And that drug dealer told him, quite frankly, was that the reason why they liked using Snapchat to sell their drugs was because of all the disappearing messages. In other words, the feature that in which the text messages between two parties disappears to wherever it may go, and it can't be traced. You don't know who sent anything. All of these messages disappear. And not only invites drug dealing on there, but also a lot of other nefarious activity. I mean, I know of mothers who have talked to me about how there have been inappropriate pictures sent to their young 12, 13, 14-year-old daughters from grown men, sextortion, cyberbullying. We know of cases on cyberbullying through Snapchat. Just speak to Rose Bronstein, and she'll tell you about how her son was bullied so badly that he took his own life, and all of these text messages, they just seem to disappear. So there's absolutely they take no responsibility about it, but that's the selling feature of that app. They say that it's supposed to be friendly, where you can, trade pictures with your friends, and you can speak with everybody and with anonymity. But to me, I think it just invites a lot of nefarious activity. In 1996, when the Communications and Decency Act was enacted, I don't think our legislators could have envisioned where the internet would be in 2024. It would have been impossible for them to understand where it would be. But in today's day and age, we have cases where not only the drug dealing, but all of this other nefarious activity that is happening online. And what you have to ask yourself, any common sense person would ask themselves, well, if it's illegal to do in the real world, in society, then why would it be legal to do online?
Right.
And how is that even being accepted? And then why are these company executives getting away with murder? Now, my son made a terrible mistake. He made a huge mistake. And like I've said many times before in many other interviews, our children are supposed to learn from their mistakes. They're certainly not supposed to die from them. And when you have social media applications or social media companies like Snapchat, Discord, Meta, Instagram, allowing these to happen, and quite frankly, they say that they're doing everything they can to stop this activity from happening. I can tell you that it's a lie. It's a lie. They're not doing nearly enough of what they can do to abate these, or to getting these drug dealers off of their apps. There's something has to be changed. Either we get rid of the Communications and Decency Act of 1996, specifically Section 230C, if we get rid of it altogether, or we introduce what we like to call a duty of care provision into the law. A duty of care provision would, if you enact the duty of care provision into the law, it would force these social media companies to have to be able to make sure that their users are safe while using the platforms. In other words,
Yeah.
Nikki, if you go into a grocery store and there's a puddle of water on, and you slip and fall and you break your elbow, well, the grocery store is on the hook for all of the costs that are related to your medical expenses, right? They have to pay for the x-rays, whatever, surgeries, whatever it may be. They have to do everything they can to make it right, because they were negligent in keeping you safe while you were on their premises, as a customer. It's the same thing should be done, in my own view, and in many other people's views, by enacting a duty of care provision onto the social media, onto the Section 230C.
Yeah.
That way, we would force these social media companies to do everything they can, invest all the money in the world to making sure that their platforms are safe, to making sure that you have age verification on there, for example, on these platforms. And, you go up, open up a cryptocurrency account, you have to show a picture of your driver's license, both front and back. Why aren't we doing that with social media?
Yeah. Well, and what they are doing is almost worse than just an accident happening on their platform, because in some cases, they are suggesting the drug dealer to the child in the quick add feature. And then their functionality of Snap Maps is allowing the drug dealer to find the location of the child. So it's almost like the grocery store taking the puddle and putting it on my front door. And now I'm going to fall. And now, I don't understand how we got here. And it's about time that they have some liability.
Something has to be done where if the kid goes on there and asking for something, that it's not just sending them out, it's not sending them algorithms, well, just, buy Tylenol. I mean, that's when it opens up the door. I think you yourself, Nikki, didn't you open up your own app on Snapchat, and that you had drug dealers reaching out to you?
I had adult men reaching out to me. No drug dealers yet, but just the amount of inappropriate straight up sexual content being served to someone. I said I was 14, a 14-year-old girl on their platform. All parents should go to house.gov, put in their zip code, and contact their representative for these bills. Just say, I want you to support Sammy's Law, or I want you to make my child safer online, something general. But I just Googled it too. So COSA does have a duty of care requirement for platforms to better mitigate harms, including the sexual exploitation and abuse of children. So there are many families currently suing Snap Inc. that all lost children. I think besides one family didn't lose the child, but the rest did, due to a fentanyl lace pill purchase on Snapchat. Can you tell me about this lawsuit that you're a part of?
The emphasis of the lawsuit is not on Section 230C.
Right.
It's mostly going after the product design in and of itself of Snapchat that has caused so much chaos and mayhem in our society due to the features of the platform in and of itself. In other words, the product design is faulty.
Yep.
It's causing death, or it's at least complicit in the deaths of thousands upon thousands of children, either due to fatal challenges, like the chokeout challenge, for example, things like that.
Yeah.
Cyberbullying, sextortion, pedophiles, and also obviously the drug dealing that happens on there.
Yeah.
When I first got into this, when I spoke to parents and I asked their parents, how did their children acquire these drugs, I would say at least 92% of the parents that I spoke with told me that their children had acquired these drugs through Snapchat. West Ranch High School, there's a team of 4 kids there,
I saw that.
who I have a meeting with this Friday, by the way.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Can you update me on that more? I wanted more of their results, because the article I saw just gave one kind of result of what they found. But tell listeners about this. It's really interesting.
I'll do something even better. I'll see if they'll go onto your program and they can talk to them about the results.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're from here, from Santa Clarita, where I live. And according to this competition that they enrolled in or they're competing in, they were chosen as finalists. And their project was basically social media and the algorithms. And through their scientific research, which took about 6 months to do, they came to the conclusion that at least 90% of all the fentanyl related deaths, both overdoses and poisonings in the state of California, could all be linked to Snapchat. Again, 90% of all the fentanyl related deaths in the state of California could be linked to Snapchat by the year 2030.
Yeah.
I have a meeting with them this Friday. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to learn a lot, and they want to do something as well. It's not like from what I understand, it's not that they did the study and they're just going to let it go. They want to also get into this fight against this crisis.
And so Snapchat's not doing anything about this. Snapchat, do they try to put Band-Aids on it? Is there any effort from their end? Because this is obviously a problem with their platform.
Going back to that article that I had read in 2017 when this young 15-year-old girl had died due to an overdose of ecstasy or MDMA. At that time, Snapchat had come out with a boilerplate type of response that they did not allow the illegal sale of drugs on their platform. That was back in 2017. And when we met them for the first time in early 2021, the way they had in a Zoom call, which I really can't get much into, but I will tell you this. It was like this was the first time that they were hearing about this. They were acting like it was the first time that they had found out or that they were hearing that there was a problem on their app. But we can go back to 2017 and look at this boilerplate response. And I said, no, you've known about this since 2017. You haven't done anything about it. You're putting Band-Aids on there. In September of 2021, Catherine Brashear was hired. She was in charge of global safety. And she was saying that they were capturing approximately 92% of all the harmful content on Snapchat, which is just impossible because we still hear of children dying this year using that app.
And drug dealers that sold to someone, that kid died, and then that drug dealer's account didn't get taken down. That drug dealer sold to someone else, and they died as well.
Correct. Or if they shut down their account, they just go get a burner phone, start up a new account, and start all over again.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And, Nikki, one death is too much.
It's insane. I know.
So if you think about the numbers that for the tentative numbers for 2022, we're a little north of drug deaths in the United States. We're a little north of 112,000 drug deaths in the United States, approximately 80,800 plus deaths due to fentanyl alone. So if you take that number and let's just say that the year 2030 is right now, and let's say that 90% of that 80, what is that? How many deaths would that be just due to Snapchat alone?
90% of 80,000. I mean, it's so many. 70-something thousand.
I hope to God that this company is not around by 2030. That's what I'm praying for.
Oh, there's no, I agree. But, other platforms are just going to pop up. So we do need this legislation with the duty of care provision so that this cannot be allowed to happen again. They have to have responsibility.
Absolutely. You have to have the duty of care provision inserted into the Section 230C law. And not just COSA. I'm just saying General 230C, insert the duty of care provision into it. You have to do that. You have to have that. Otherwise, just nix the whole law and then start all over again.
Okay. So, Jaime, you have an organization called Stop the Void. Can you tell me what that's focused on, what you're working on?
Stop the Void, Victims of Illicit Drugs, was formed in March of 2021. Our organization is focused more so on education, awareness, and prevention. And the way we do that is we have a documentary called Dead on Arrival. I'm sure you've watched it before, Nikki. Have you watched it before?
I have,
We use that documentary in high schools and junior high schools around the nation. We present in high school gymnasiums. I just got back from Washington State where I presented to 2,000 high schoolers at Spanaway Lake High School. We present the documentary. I follow it up with a PowerPoint presentation, and you would be surprised. I have a stack of letters here somewhere where kids just don't know about these fake pills. They don't know. Nobody is telling them. There's no drug education going on into the schools right now.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the DARE program is so outdated.
Oh God, yeah.
It's just woefully outdated that it's not up to its time. So
Mm-hmm.
we do a lot of education awareness. But besides that, we've also been able to give presentations to our federal law enforcement partners. So
Mm-hmm.
I also am co-chair of an organization called FacingFentanylNow.org.
Mm-hmm.
That's the national foundation that
Mm-hmm.
is like the umbrella for all of the individual organizations. On August the 21st, by Senate resolution, it was assigned by the late Dianne Feinstein and Senator Chuck Grassley that August 21st be the official National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day.
Amazing.
It's very different than the other day in May because the day in May actually was co-founded by Snapchat, of all people. And most people don't know
It's
that.
all PR. It's all PR bullshit from them. God.
Thank you. I've been holding my P's and
It's
Q's with you,
okay. I'll
Nikki.
say it.
I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I've been holding the F bombs back. But they did this along with another family foundation that will remain nameless,
Mm-hmm.
but they co-founded this date and everybody fell for it. And it's very popular and there's lots of people that do things on that day. But what people fail to realize is that this was co-founded by Snapchat in and of itself. Like all PR, it's all PR. So the official date is August 21st.
Okay.
But we're very active. We've been able to get a lot done, but there's still a lot more to do.
Yeah.
As long as the numbers continue to grow, it means that we just have to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But again, the only real way that we're going to be able to do this is on all fronts. We have to have an all-out war
Mm-hmm.
against these narco-terrorist organizations.
Mm-hmm.
We have to rein in these complicit banks that are laundering all of this money.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to go over this. We have to go after the source itself. And here in the United States, we have to understand that this is not just a drug addiction problem or a recreational drug use problem. This is a problem that's affecting families all across the United States. First-time drug. Again, I hate to repeat myself, but it is not normal for a police officer to walk into the bedroom and find a 13-year-old dead girl who had never tried drugs before,
right,
and find her dead.
Right.
It's not normal.
No.
So, and now the xylazines are being added to the fentanyl as well, where naloxone does not work. It will not reverse the poisoning or the overdose. So it's getting worse. And so all hands on deck.
Yeah.
All hands on deck. And you, by the way, are a warrior. I have to congratulate you because I've been watching your series. I've been watching your interviews. And I just think that you're just another person who is putting a dent in this crisis. And personally, from myself and from everybody at Stop the Void, just want to thank you so much for the hard work that you're doing as well in informing these families and letting them know about the inherent danger that is at their very doorstep.
Yeah.
Because social media is facilitating these drugs. It's as easy as ordering a pizza.
Right.
And by you doing what you're doing, you're letting them know and you're saving lives too, my friend. So thank you.
Jaime, thank you. Because of parents like you that have been through this and are accidental advocates, right? And you're put in this position where through telling your story, you are saving lives. And all I want to do is just amplify these stories. I think that if we all keep speaking up, it's not a fear-mongering situation, though we should be scared because this stuff is on our doorstep, like you just said, and we need to talk to our kids about it and we need to tell other parents about it so that we can potentially save our own child's life one day or their friend's life. I mean, it's going to touch someone we know. These are the numbers we're talking about. So, Jaime, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for everything you do to protect children.
Thank you so much. If you want to find us, go to stopthevoid.org.
Yep.
You'll find a documentary there. There are no copyrights to that documentary, so it could be used at people's pleasure. Many organizations already use it for their awareness efforts, so please visit the website. We don't charge anything. If you want us to go to your school and present, give us a call. We'll go there. We do not charge a nickel at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do not charge any money for our presentations.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you for this interview. I really, I know it's a difficult topic, but I just really appreciate the opportunity of being on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaime.